All right, thanks for tuning in tonight. My name is Ken Stano with the YouTube channel History X. Thank you for watching. CC and Old Man Kenny G are already on making comments. That's great to have you guys here tonight. Subject tonight, we've got yet another author joining us from the Naval Institute Press, which is always a thrill for us. Brian Laslie, who wrote the book, and I want to make sure I get this right because I've had it. I've been calling the book Sundowners, but it's actually Sundowners, Pegasus, and go ahead, Brian.
Little Butch.
Little Butch. Thank you. And let's see here. I'm going to get into Brian's background in a little bit, but of course, just to introduce, where is it? There we go. Just, people always helping me out tonight. We've got Shane Stevenson, curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. John Epp. He actually is with us, even though he doesn't have his camera going. With USS Slater out of Albany, New York. And then, of course, Connor. He's going to be taking care of or marshaling your comments. Like I say, always handling the levers and dials behind the scenes. He is also one of the admins for the Huge Museum Ships Facebook group. So when it comes to what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is Carrier Air Group 11, let us know what questions you have, comments, and we will get them up on the screen. All right. So like I said, a few moments ago, we've got Dr. Brian Laslie joining us this evening. And Brian's background, apparently you like to study at a lot of different schools. Let's see. I mean, because you were at the Citadel College of South Carolina. You were at Auburn, master's degree out of Auburn. So you've made the rounds. And he's given us a PowerPoint tonight. We're going to be talking about his book, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. So before we logged on, we're kind of giving Brian the rundown about how we handle these things. And, it's pretty casual, Brian. So, I mean, the question I'm going to hit you with first is why? What, you've written a lot of different books. Why this?
So, number one, thanks for having me. Appreciate you guys having me on tonight. Excited to be here. There were several reasons I wanted to write this book. Number one is that the Naval Institute Press asked me if I would do a book for them. I had done chapters for them before. I had done introductions for them before, but I had never done my own USNI book. And so they came to me and said, "Hey, would you like to write something for us?" I jumped at the chance. I really wanted to do it.
I didn't know they did things that way. I didn't.
It's not unusual. After you have written, 1, 2, or 3 books for different presses, or you've done podcasts, or you've done articles. I don't want to say, once you're kind of a known quantity in the industry, if you will, they will come to you, particularly if you have a particular expertise in a certain area. And so as an aviation and air power guy, it kind of made sense. Now, I'll tell you another reason I wanted to do it is I had never done a book strictly about naval aviation before. I've done chapters about naval aviation. I've written about the Navy in Vietnam, but I've never just done a Navy book per se.
You know what? I'm actually looking at, and I should have probably done a screenshot here. So you've written the Air Force Way of War, U.S. Tactics and Training After Vietnam, Operation Allied Force 1999, NATO's air power. And then let's see, Air Power's Lost Cause. You're right, but not one of these is dedicated to naval aviation.
Yeah, obviously the Navy shows up in Operation Allied Force. They show up in Air Power's Lost Cause, A History of Vietnam, and they show up in the Air Force Way of War, in as much as that's a book about training that the Air Force did after Vietnam, but the Navy also had a role there. So yeah, I kind of jumped at the chance to do a book strictly about naval aviation.
And how long have you been an author?
Oh gosh, 10 years now.
10 years. So yeah. when you go to school for, historian of air power studies, bachelor's degree, history from the Citadel, Military College in South Carolina. I mean, did you go to school knowing that you wanted to be a writer?
No, not at all. I graduated from the Citadel. I commissioned in the Air Force. I spent 7 years active duty. And it was at that point that I kind of decided, I wanted to go back to grad school. I wanted to get the PhD. And I thought, as I think everyone who goes to get a PhD thinks when they start a program, is I'm going to get a tenure track job. I'm going to be a full-time professor. And that's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Right. And then along the way, reality interferes with that. And I ended up going to work for the Air Force as an Air Force historian, which is separate from kind of my personal writing that you've been talking about. But I've continued to write all along the way.
Okay. So that's really that's really your passion then.
You write the dissertation, which is kind of your union card to get into the academic career field, if you will. Mm-hmm. And after you finish that, you think, man, I never want to write anything as long as I live ever again. And then eventually you're like, well, I wrote it. I should try to turn it into a book. And you do that. And then for me, just kind of one thing led to another. I kept finding topics, and then presses were coming and asking me to write about particular things. And, here I am 10 years later, I think 6 books in. And like you say, Ken, this has kind of become who I am and what I do.
Mm-hmm. And Shane, that's kind of you had to do a thesis, right? That you turned into a book, right?
No, my master's thesis didn't turn into a book.
Oh, I thought it did.
No.
You did it on one of the presidents, right?
No, you must be thinking of a different Shane, apparently.
Oh yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just find being.
But to confirm with Dr. Brian, for my master's degree, I wrote 104 papers in a 2-year time span. Yeah. So when you graduate, you say you're kind of done, but now it's teaching you how to write. And that's probably what Dr. Brian learned. Those degrees teach you the subject matter, but they also teach you how to write because you're doing it so much. And maybe you just naturally gravitate. Now, my books are not, long tomes about things, but they're still enjoyable to write. And
cool.
Grad school can ruin reading and writing history if you're not careful.
Burnout, right?
Absolutely.
I have no doubt.
I've only recently, and I think this book is a great example, gotten to where it's not that I haven't enjoyed writing the other things I've written, but this book, I thoroughly enjoyed the process of writing it.
Good.
Well, then let's jump right into it. All right. So like we started off by saying the Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. So when you say you thoroughly enjoyed writing, what part of, are you talking about the research? Are you talking about actually just touching on a story that you found interesting?
So there were, I told the Naval Institute Press, I would only do this if I could meet 2 conditions. Number one, could I tell a story that I did not think had been told before? There are hundreds, if not thousands, of great books about the war in the Pacific, about the big battles. And so I said, look, I don't want to rehash something that's been done. I would like to find a new angle to attack this. And then I also said, hey, are there enough primary sources, right? Is there enough in the archives, or has someone done enough work before me that I can build off what they've done. And in very short order, in very rapid fashion, I was able to answer both of those questions in the affirmative. And Ken, if you'll go to the next slide, that's the last slide. Let's go.
Oh shoot, do I have them in reverse order?
Damn you it. Do, or you just went the wrong way, but we'll get there. Yeah. Now we're just going to go backwards through all the slides.
Hold on a second.
There we go.
All right.
You're perfect right there. So you'll note that there's a movie poster on the side there called 11 the Movie. And George Ritalis is a director extraordinaire. And long story short, he had discovered his grandfather's diary and then he set out to track down the surviving members of Air Group 11. Okay. So in addition to the 11 living members that he interviewed that you see there on the bottom of the poster, he collected after action reports. He collected diaries. He collected just an absolute treasure trove of information. With the surviving members, he did interviews. And of course, if you watch the film, and you can find it on YouTube, just search for 11 the movie. If you watch the movie, you'll get these guys talking for a minute or two about, this particular engagement or what have you. But he had done, multi-hour interviews with all of these people. So between what George had put together for 11 the movie, and then what I was able to pull together from the National Archives, which was extensive in itself, I knew going in I had more than enough primary source information and interviews and recollections to really tell what I hoped was going to be a compelling story.
So you spent a fair amount of time at National Archives then too?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think being a historian, living in the archives is kind of what you do. Now, I will say that, look, I don't know how they did it in the old days. I don't know how they did it 20, 30 years ago. I do travel. I do visit archives, but a lot of archival material has been made available online. So before you even set foot in an archive, you can get a good idea of what's out there.
Yeah, and I've always told people, because a lot of the footage I get from my YouTube videos comes from the National Archives, and it's kind of a clunky website, but once you get the hang of it, it's fascinating. I think it's fascinating.
Well, you can go down. I mean, even let's say I'm looking for particular documents on a fighter squadron or a bomber squadron or something. You'll see something that catches your eye, and then you start chasing that, and hours later, you're like, I really need to get back onto what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Oh, yeah. Or something that was mislabeled. And it's like, well, that's not about Henderson Field, but this is cool. And so I strongly recommend anyone that has the time, instead of, take a night off from YouTube, take a night off from TikTok, check out the National Archives. You will not regret it. All right, let's get back to your project. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, 11 the movie, that's interesting because I had not heard of it before tonight, but if it's on YouTube, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, George did a phenomenal job with this. I mean, he did what I think every one of us would love to do, which is he was able to find the people who knew his grandfather, who were in that unit, to kind of chase them down, to interview them. And so I really owe a debt of gratitude to George that I will never be able to replicate or replace or do something nice for him. In fact, you see the picture on the right there. That's actually his grandfather, George Ratalis. And, as I was writing the story, the thing I loved about George Ratalis, the sailor, not the filmmaker, the sailor, was that he was like a sailor. They called him Ratalass. They called him Greek.
Yeah.
In other pictures, I put this kind of professional one in there. In every other picture, he looks like what you think a World War II Navy sailor looks like. Like his shirt is always open, his hat's tilted back on his head. He's got this deep bronze tan. He looks like he's ready to go into a movie.
Yeah. And if you read the caption next to the photo, it talks about how, he had a diary or a journal, and he just wrote all of his experiences down.
Yeah. And his grandson, also named George, found it. And that's what set him off on that journey to make 11 the movie. And so, like I said, in between what George had already pulled together in his team, and then what I was able to buttress with what was in the National Archives, which was really extensive. I was really impressed. But it's the National Archives.
And is that
I knew I was going to have enough.
Is that also because Guadalcanal, for example, I don't know. I've come across. I mean, there just seems to be just a lot of information about Guadalcanal. So
let me say that. Let's go back to when I said that I wanted to do something. I wanted to make sure I told a story that hadn't been told before. And so what I found out about this air group And for those who might not know, an air group is made up of a fighter squadron, a bomber squadron, and a torpedo squadron. Early in the war, they would have also had a scout squadron, but those get, by April of 1943, which is kind of where our story begins, the scouting squadron had gone away. So in an air group, you got a fighter squadron, bomber squadron, torpedo squadron.
And just real quick, the scouting squadron goes away just because of the advent of radar.
There's a lot of reasons. One, that they are already flying the same aircraft that the bombing squadron is, that it just really wasn't needed anymore. So that mission, rather than have a separate squadron for it, that mission gets rolled up into the bombing squadron.
Got it. Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go
no.
ahead.
And so what I found was that this particular air group was not at the big battles. They're not at Coral Sea. They are not at Midway. They are not at the Marianas Turkey Shoot. They're not at these big battles. And to me, it seemed that typically when we read about the war in the Pacific, that's what we focus on are these big battles. All right. And it's set piece battle to set piece battle. But these guys were there after Midway, so that they missed those big battles. But they are doing missions flying from Guadalcanal every single day. And so to me, it was just this daily grind of performing the mission, of attriting the Japanese forces, but not something that you were going to find in a lot of, pop history books. The same thing is true of their second tour when they're actually on the USS Hornet. They are not at any what we would consider big set piece battle. They kind of miss Leyte Gulf. They get there at the tail end of it. But again, so what I found was, here's this air unit that's doing things every day, just grinding it out, making attacks, going into combat, but not being highlighted in kind of the traditional way. And so that was kind of the angle that I took in writing the book.
And is that why the Naval Institute Press approached you? They wanted something along the lines too?
Yeah. They had an idea that they wanted to focus on this particular air group. And there had been some articles. There had never been a book length treatment on the air group before. And so they asked me if I would, and let me say that I think one of the reasons this stuck with me, let's talk about the importance of pop culture for historians. If you watch the original Top Gun, when Maverick and Goose get chewed out for buzzing the tower, and they come out of the office, there's a huge Sundowners emblem on the wall behind them right there.
Oh, no kidding.
And so for whatever reason, that emblem, that patch had stuck in my head, I guess, for 35 years. And so when they asked me to write about them, I was like, oh yeah, I know who these guys are. I'd love to write about them.
Actually, I don't.
So they must have really put their aviation mechanics to a great strain and work if they're grinding it out every day, every other day. They're going out there. Every plane that comes back gets repaired, whether it's really damaged or not. They're just tightening all the bolts and checking everything. That must have really put the aviation mechanics under some sort of strain, I would think.
Yeah, it's fascinating that, and again, in a lot of histories, tend to focus on the fighter pilots or the pilots of the bombers and the torpedoes. But there was so much information and research for this book where I was able to talk about the air crew from a greater whole. So the radio men, the bilgemen, the gunners, the early radar operators in VB-11 and VT-11, the bomber and torpedo squadron. And then also, the mechanics on the ground. As you mentioned that, Shane, I'm reminded that they had one aircraft that took a bullet hole through one of the propellers. And it made this terrible whining noise. And rather than replace the entire propeller, he just drilled 2 holes in the other propellers, and that worked, right? That solved the problem.
Oh, that's great.
You mean it solved it from like a balancing standpoint?
It solved it from a balancing standpoint. It solved it from the weird noise standpoint.
Okay.
The aircraft worked perfectly, and probably not a solution that's in any tech manual anywhere. But it just worked out.
Yeah, because like in my flying days, it was, like if you wanted to like even paint the propellers, that was like, no, you're gonna knock it off of balance. And then you're telling me they came back with a bullet hole in one. What the hell? We're just gonna drill 2 more holes.
This gets into the total war aspect of World War II, I guess. In that whatever you could do to accomplish the mission is what you had to do. And so you saw a lot of that in the memories of the mechanics on the ground.
Like you said, decades ago, well, hell, maybe even as recently as like maybe 10 years ago, everyone wants to hear about, the fighter pilots, the the battleships, the impressive battles, all that stuff. So when you decide to deviate a little bit and start talking about the radio man, okay, or the mechanical crews like Shane brought up, which I thought was a great question. Thanks for doing that, Shane. It's like, do you get pushback from editors or maybe publishers? It's like,
it's a conversation. Nothing in this book did the press or either of the reviewers. So typically when you write a book for, either an academic press or Naval Institute press, these books will go under multiple rounds of blind peer review. And so no one really argued. I've had presses argue about things I've put in books before. Sometimes I take them out, sometimes I leave them in there. But the stories for this particular work were so compelling. I'm reminded, when we talk about the air crews, the fighter pilots in VF-11, the Sundowners, obviously are flying by themselves. The guys in the bomber and the torpedo squadrons have either another crewman gunner on there or 2 crewmen. I remember that one of the aircraft took a hit. The pilot told the 2 guys to get out. The first guy jumped, parachuted down into the water, and then he made this kind of harrowing journey to get back to Guadalcanal. But what he found out was that the pilot had told him to jump, but then the pilot was able to save the aircraft. So of the 3 of them, he was the only one that jumped out. Had this harrowing journey of getting back to Guadalcanal. And so funny's not the right word, but I had to chuckle at the idea that this guy parachutes out and then the pilot just flies the plane back to Guadalcanal.
That sounds like that B-17 bomber story where they all claim that, oh, we're going down. And they just wanted the navigator to jump out. I forget. Yeah. And the navigator jumped out and it's like, oh, the plane's fine. They flew back. It's like, well, that's terrible.
And that brings up talking that story reminds me of the saga of one of the fighter pilots, Bob Maxwell, who also took he actually had a midair collision on the way to one of their attacks, and he ended up having to bail out. And if I am even slightly inconvenienced, if I get into a car accident on the way to work, I'm probably going to be like, yeah, let's call it a day. That's enough for today. Bob Maxwell parachutes out over some unknown island north of Guadalcanal, and then he's got 2 choices. He can sit there or he can try to make his way back to the island. And so he goes on this harrowing 2-week kind of Robinson Crusoe-like journey, going from island to island, working his way south, avoiding Japanese patrols, to finally make it to one of the coast watchers and catch a ride back to the unit.
That sounds similar to Kennedy and PT-109 and those guys scrambling. I don't know if you know that story. But
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, going island to island to island and, trying to make contact with the coast watchers. So
yeah, if you'll go to, I think it's whatever the next slide is that has the actual map
Heck yeah, that actually. Well, before we do this though, because I've always been fascinated with the slot and the map. But before we do this, I actually want to back up a little bit. So, what exactly? I mean, Guadalcanal is this Henderson?
So this is near Henderson and Fighter One.
Okay.
And so what's in something I probably should have mentioned, they end up on Guadalcanal because obviously they're a Navy unit. They should be on an aircraft carrier, right?
Yeah.
They're supposed to be on the first. It's actually the 7th, but the first USS Hornet aircraft carrier, which gets sunk.
Yeah, they were stranded there, weren't they?
Yeah. So they were still going to go on a cruise, for lack of a better term, but they ended up on Guadalcanal, and there were a bunch of stories of guys that had joined the Navy, mechanics and pilots and gunners, and look, I joined the Navy because I know I'm going to be on an aircraft carrier. I'm going to get a soft bed every night. I'm going to get standard meal, and here they are operating out of Guadalcanal. So they come into Guadalcanal just after the island's been declared secure. So the Guadalcanal Canal is over. And the quote that I always remember is, one of the aircrew said, well, Guadalcanal was just not a very fun place. And I thought, well, there's an understatement for you. Another guy said, it was wake up, eat chow, go to the line, come back, eat chow, go to bed, and rinse, wash, and repeat.
Well, because and stop me if I'm wrong, but when it comes to Guadalcanal, you're talking about mosquitoes, dysentery, correct?
You're talking about all sorts of they're sleeping under mosquito nets.
Yeah.
So that there are things on the island that are trying to kill you. There's actually one of the senior officers gets to Guadalcanal, and this took me in the months to figure this out because I think he was the XO of the bomber squadron, and so you would think this is a fairly prominent guy, and he just kind of disappears. And it's months into the research that I found out this is funny. He gets hit on the head by a coconut. a coconut falls out of the tree and hits him on the head. And he just kind of disappears from the narrative. I think he's in the hospital for the rest of the tour at Guadalcanal. But wow. So you've got the apparently the trees are trying to kill you. The mosquitoes are trying to kill you. Every night as you're trying to get some sleep, the Japanese would send a bomber over, affectionately known as Washing Machine Charlie, and it was a nuisance raid just to keep you up, but it could be deadly.
And didn't in that situation, it wasn't typically like a twin engine where the engines were purposely out of sync.
Yeah, to be loud and annoying, and like they said, it literally sounds like a washing machine. I mean,
it's just like one nightmare after another. And,
it never ends.
And you're not. I know you weren't trying to downgrade what they were going through, but it's hilarious how bad it is. The rain, the mud, it's just awful.
Yeah, everything. And again, if you look at it through the eyes of a bunch of guys who thought they were going to be on an aircraft carrier, to end up on this terrible island. In fact, there was a B-17 crew member who wrote a memoir years later, and he said, and I was always reminded that I did not have it as bad as the guys at Guadalcanal.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to the map. But before we do, Connor, John, Shane, any questions you want to hit Brian with so far?
Yeah. So you explained pretty well why you wanted to focus on this particular group in particular. But were there any other, like when you were doing the research and saying, okay, what's something interesting for me to write about? Were there any other things that kind of caught your mind that maybe you didn't write about now, but you might just keep in the back of your head for
That's a good question.
future things?
Yeah. I think what I found out is we tend to think of, at least I do, tend to think of World War II historical literature is kind of a crowded field. Yeah. Like I said, there's there's hundreds of books on Guadalcanal. New stuff comes out on Midway every year. But take, for example, so this unit does a tour on Guadalcanal, and then they do a tour on the Hornet. But the Hornet actually had two other air groups, one that was on the ship before them and one that was on the ship after them. And so when you think about that, there are, something like 120 Navy air groups in World War II. Not some of them are very famous. Some of them are not so famous, but every one of them has compelling stories, right? So I think if anything, it made me realize that there will always be something to write about. There will always be more stories to be told. And Connor, let me add that one thing I talk about in the introduction is that the World War II generation is almost gone. At the latest now, they're in their late 90s, right? I mean, that's just about they're almost gone. And so, I remember watching Band of Brothers when it came out in September of 2001, and they would interview, these guys who at the time were in their 60s and 70s, and they could still tell a compelling story. And so between when I was writing this and at the same time that Masters of the Air had come out, it really made me lament that there are all of these other units out there, and they never got to see their story told. Now, Ken, you flashed up the picture there of Dick Morales. Dick Morales just turned 100 years old. He was one of the air crewmen in Carrier Air Group 11. Again,
and he was probably one of the young ones, right?
Yeah, he was. Him and George Ritalis, I think both turned like 18 on Guadalcanal. Joined the Navy at 17 years old. And so Dick just turned 100. And when the book came out, George took a copy over to show Dick and show Dick Morales that I had written about him and that I had kind of told his story to a degree. And that was incredibly moving for me.
I can believe that.
Did you have the opportunity to meet many of these guys?
No. Like I said, I relied on a lot of the work that had been done by other people. And I lament that as we go forward, if these men and women who served in World War II have not told their story, have not written their story down, have not done an oral history interview, our ability to get new first-person perspectives from the Second World War is more or less gone at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There's an interesting, I can't remember where I first heard about it, but the author Laura Hillebrand, she wrote Seabiscuit. Okay. And the way she did a lot of her research wasn't necessarily National Archives, but it was more, she would grab newspapers that were published at the same time that her sub. So while she's writing Seabiscuit, she comes across, while she's reading these newspapers, articles about this Olympian guy by the name of Louis Zamperini. And it's like, all right, well, who's Louis Zamperini? Well, it turns out he was a B-24 pilot, shot down in the Pacific, captured, prisoner war camps, which led to the movie Unbroken, which was even bigger than Seabiscuit. And to your point, he was still alive at the time when she was writing the book. But to come across these stories now, it's almost too late. It is too late, right?
Yeah, it is. And
because without Hillebrand writing Unbroken and then having it turned into a movie, Zamperini wouldn't have had that level of notoriety before he passed away.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remember, look, I love Band of Brothers. It has held up incredibly well.
Oh yeah.
I have recently rewatched it with both of my kids. They did a great job in Masters of the Air of telling the story of both the 8th Air Force or this one particular bomb group and then one of the Tuskegee Airmen squadrons. But you have to always keep in mind that what we call the Band of Brothers was one company in one battalion in one regiment, of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of others in each of those other companies, other battalions, other regiments, other fighter squadrons have compelling stories to be told. Other nations. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and that is one of the things that we miss as Americans, and it's not our fault. I mean, I think anyone would tend to focus on the history that you are interested in. Yeah. But yeah, the combined effort of all of the Allied forces in the Second World War.
For those of you just joining us tonight, we are talking to Dr. Brian Laslie, author of the Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch, book basically about Carrier Air Group 11. And this just came out. It was June, right, when it was finally published?
Brand new book. In fact, it's funny. You do so much work in the lead up to publishing a book, and then I got really busy for the people that actually pay me money. At work, I got really busy, and so this is actually the first time I've done any kind of press or talking about the book. So
what?
Yeah, it just took a backseat to so many other things.
You got to be kidding me. Well, what's great is that it's going out on 3 YouTube channels, and our conversation tonight will go on forever. So I mean, we're happy to have the people that are joining us live tonight, but there's also going to be plenty of people that click on this video after the fact and hearing about it. So wow, we're glad you decided to roll the dice with us.
No, this is exciting. I'm happy to be here. And Ken, let me say that as long as you got the cover of the book up there, and you would kind of mention that it is a little bit of a clunky title, and that the official title is The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. What I did not mention earlier is that we thought about just calling the book The Sundowners, but that would have been a discredit to the men in the bombing squadron and the men in the torpedo squadron. So the title reflects the patches and emblems and history of the 3 squadrons. Fighter squadron is the Sundowners, Pegasus is the bombing squadron, and Little Butch is the torpedo squadron. Of the 3 patches, Disney artist at Disney did Little Butch, the red and blue with the baby throwing the torpedo there.
Oh wait, hold on a second. Let me get us.
Yeah, our pictures on there. You go.
You're talking about that one right there.
Yeah, so you see VT-11. That is a cherub baby throwing a torpedo with the skull on it. But that was designed by Walt Disney Productions.
And let's say, I think it was probably about like maybe 10, 15 minutes ago, you had mentioned that the Sundowners, that's what everybody knows, at least to, geeks like me. And Connor, you said you had even read a book about the Sundowners that was probably published 10 years ago, maybe?
That's when I read it. I have no idea.
Oh, okay. And so people recognize the Sundowners, and you even mentioned that the emblem was on display as they're coming out of the office from getting their butts chewed out in Top Gun.
Yes,
everyone's heard of the Sundowners,
and I think it's a fairly famous emblem. I spend a lot of my professional time working on Air Force emblems, and so there are some from any service that just kind of transcend history that are just more recognizable than the others. Obviously, the 82nd Airborne, the 101st Airborne. For the Air Force, the Hat and the Ring Squadron, the 94th Fighter Squadron. And then to me, for the Navy, I always think about the Jolly Rogers, and then the Sundowners, to me, was always a very familiar emblem.
Shane, something just occurred to me. You know where Brian would do really, really well? Armchair Commanders.
Oh, because he could talk about movies and stuff.
Well, Jack and John would, yeah. Anyway, when we're done here, remind me, Brian. I need to
have Jack and John give me a call. I'm standing by.
Yeah, I think you'd get a kick out of it. And we've talked about it in the past in the show. If you haven't already, check out the podcast Armchair Commanders, where they get a historian like Shane, like Brian, have them come on, and then they talk about a particular historical based movie. What's right with it? What's wrong with it? Shout out to Armchair Commanders, Jack and John.
Brian, who's the identity of the pilot on the cover?
Oh, good question.
That is, man, I didn't bring my copy down. I'm pretty sure that's Gene Fairfax, who was the VF-11 squadron commander on the Hornet. And so, yeah, that's Gene Fairfax is his name.
So I apologize for getting you sidetracked. We started to talk about Solomon Islands.
We talked about so these guys, this particular air group essentially has their carrier taken away from them because the first Hornet, they're also supposed to be on the Hornet CV-8, and it gets sunk, and so they end up being stationed on Guadalcanal after the island's secure. And Guadalcanal is kind of an amalgamation. There are Navy units, Marine units, Army Air Force units, coalition units. There's just this, previously during the Guadalcanal campaign, it was known as the Cactus Air Force. When they get there, it is now the Air Solomon Command. So Air Sol Com, I think, was the abbreviation. And so they are, you can see Guadalcanal in kind of the lower right there. You can see Henderson Field is marked. And then you can see the Russell Islands. And so if you literally follow, go kind of northwest, that is what's known as the slot. And the Japanese hold a bunch of the islands north and northwest of Guadalcanal. They have a very large base up in New Britain called Rabaul. And so these guys, this torpedo squadron, bomber squadron, and fighter squadron, from April until about August of 1943, just day in and day out, flying up the slot and back, making attack on Japanese positions, on Japanese shipping, engaging in air-to-air combat. And so you would end up, today, I think we'd call them guerrilla packages. You'd end up with these, 100+ airplanes from 3 or 4 different units flying up the slot to attack a particular target. So they would go against Bougainville. They would go against, I think it was Vanga. And so it was just all of these different Japanese bases in the region that they were just slowly but surely trying to attrit down throughout 1943.
So were most of their missions from Henderson to try and eliminate the Tokyo Express effort?
Yeah, they would go after anything that they could. And that's not a dodge on your question. Because it was so weird that at this time, there were times where the Japanese were running, I don't want to call them escape missions, but they were going and picking troops up and then taking them back up the slot. And then there were other times where they were bringing troops down the slot to one of the islands there. And so there was this, the Japanese had this weird back and forth. What the Japanese did wrong here was that I mentioned Rabaul, which was kind of their primary air base in the region. They could have established several other air bases in the region and made it really difficult on us to attrit them. And they did have other ports, other shipping facilities. They had stuff there, but Rabaul, they kind of put all their eggs in one basket up there. And so that gave us more freedom of action up and down the slot.
All right. Let's see. Next slide here, or at least in the order that I have it. And so we've got an image of the Hornet here.
Yeah. So before we go to the Hornet, let me mention 2 things while we were still on Guadalcanal.
Yeah, let's do it.
And so I mentioned that they were there from Easter Sunday of 1943 until late July, early August. 2 things I want to mention, that if you know who Ensign George Gay is, who was, famous for the Battle of Midway and watching the destruction of 3 of the 4 Japanese carriers there. He is now in Torpedo Squadron 11. So they have a bunch of leaders and officers who had already served in other units, numerous Navy Cross recipients. And so George Gay is actually with that torpedo squadron. I would also like to mention that E. Howard Hunt, famous many years later for the Watergate incident, one of Nixon's, I guess you would say, hatchet men, was an author at this time, and he was tailing VT-11 around. And so if you want to get the book Limit of Darkness, it's actually about Torpedo Squadron 11 and their operations out of Guadalcanal by E. Howard Hunt. Final thing I want to mention is that you expect men to die in combat and air crews to be lost and to be killed, missing, wounded in action. And you even expect that in training environments. It is just part of the job for these air crews. What you do not expect is there was a plane of VT-11, and it had the air group commander, and then it had about 20 members of VT-11 on it, and they were going back down to Australia for a little R&R in June, and the plane crashes. And VT-11 loses something like 25% of their men in this one accident coming back from an R&R trip. And to me, reading that was just incredibly moving and incredibly tragic. You know that along the way, some of these men are gonna disappear.
But not that way.
Not that way.
Yeah.
It was incredibly moving.
Yeah, that one. I remember reading about that. I didn't realize that was VT-11, but yeah, I mean, you're talking about a good chunk of people that were wiped out, not in battle, not from any kind of wounds or anything they picked up from the enemy. No, they were just returning from some R&R. And
Jeez, it was George Gay.
Huh?
Right, it's George Gay. He was with Torpedo Squadron 8 Midway. Everyone gets wiped out except for him. He goes to VT or VB 11, and then this happens. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he was literally on the plane. George Gay was, as it was leaving to go on the R&R trip, and the air group commander Weldon Hamilton comes up and grabs him off the plane and basically says, "I need your seat."
Yeah. He pulled a seniority move on him, right?
And so Gay is not on that aircraft, and so, man, and George Gay wrote a phenomenal memoir after the war. The name of it escapes me right now, but yeah, here's a guy that had survived Midway, had been the sole survivor is the name of the book, the sole survivor of his unit, and then to survive, getting pulled off that R&R plane, to kind of lighten the mood. I remember that George Gay was asked, aren't you worried about a bullet with your name on it? And Gay kind of humorously responded, I'm not really worried about those. I think all of those are used up at Midway. I'm more concerned with the ones labeled "to whom it may concern."
More of a random shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, a quick question before we move on. Going back to this picture here, talking about how these pilots and air crews were essentially stranded. How did they get along? How did they mix in? How did they get along with the ground forces? Because you're talking about Navy versus Army, or because this wasn't the Marines, it was Navy versus Army, correct?
So there are Marine air units there. They did interact, but you were kind of even amongst the torpedo bombing and fighter squadron, you were kind of cubbied, I guess, with your own guys. But I will say that there was conflict between the Marine flyers and the VF-11 flyers for the months of April, May, and June. VF-11, the Sundowners thought that they were getting kind of the short end of the stick, that they weren't getting to go out and do all of the important they weren't getting to go out and shoot down the Japanese, which is what they wanted.
Okay.
And so they thought that they were kind of being left to provide combat air patrol over the island or protect the bombing and torpedo squadrons, and they weren't allowed to go out and do their own hunting. That changes in June, July. But yeah, there was conflict. They thought they were being short shifted there for a little while.
Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Going back to the map. And I apologize because I'm struggling in my mind on the timing when this came out or when it was discovered. But at one point, the code breakers intercept a transmission from the Japanese saying Yamamoto is going to be heading into Bougainville.
Yeah. So by this point, I mean, by Midway, which is I mean, in the summer of 42, we had already cracked. We hadn't cracked the entire code, but we had cracked enough of it to know that they were going to strike at Midway. And then by this time, so a year later, or almost a year later in 43, we were more or less reading the Japanese mail. And so there was if this is the particular strike you're thinking about, in June, the Japanese sent up kind of an all or nothing strike. They sent up like 120 aircraft, but we knew they were coming. And so the entire weight of everything that was at Henderson Field and Fighter One went up and engaged them, and it was a predecessor to the turkey shoot, let's say.
Actually, I didn't know that. No, what I was going to bring up was they had intercepted a transmission saying Yamamoto's going to be doing a morale boost.
Yeah.
And he's going to be flying into Bougainville, and they had a hard time trying to find a squadron with the right equipment that could make the run. And I wanted to find out, did you do any research where Air Group 11 might have been considered for something like that?
They got there right after Operation Vengeance, I think it was.
It was Operation Vengeance. Very good.
And so it was right after that. That was mid to early April 43. And so, that was an Army Air Force P-38 unit.
Yep.
I can't remember what squadron it was off the top of my head. But that was right before Air Group 11 got to Guadalcanal.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. So sidetracked you again. So let's move on. This was the next picture in the order of the slides that I received from you. Is this the next one that you want to talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Air Group 11, kind of goes back to California in late summer 1943, and then they're kind of, I don't want to say off the hook, but they've got to go back, they've got to refit, they got to get new aircraft, they got to get new personnel, and this is just part of the standard rotation that air groups went through during the Pacific War in 1943 and 1944. So that there's kind of this interlude in late 43 and into 44, where CVG-11 is back in California. The fighter squadron gets new fighters. The bomber squadron gets new bombers, and the torpedo squadron sticks with what they have. So the fighter pilots of VF-11 transition from the Grumman F-4F Wildcat into the Grumman F-6F Hellcat, part of the cat family that Grumman was famous for. So kind of important point, VF-11 did not fly the F-4U Corsairs, so they stuck with Grumman aircraft. They went from the Wildcat to the Hellcat. The bomber pilots of VB-11 went from the Douglas SBD Dauntless, SBD, which everyone said, pardon me, that stood for slow but deadly.
Yeah.
They transition into the SB-2C Helldiver, and then VT-11, when they're back in California, they stay with the TBM Avenger. So you can imagine that, you're getting new pilots in, you're getting new commanders. Some of the old hands are rotating out, some are staying there, and it's just this retrofitting process that the unit goes through before going back for their second tour.
Which raises one question. So you said Pegasus and Little Butch. Which one referred to the torpedo?
Little Butch.
Little Butch is the torpedo.
Did they because they were flying the SBD before they switched equipment.
The bombers were flying the
the bombers.
Oh, so that would have been Pegasus then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's the torpedo guy. So the torpedo, little Butch. What equipment would they have been flying?
They were flying the TBM Avenger, and I am sure that there is a rivet counter who is going to contradict me at some point. And
Rivet counter. I like that.
because TBM, the M I think was General Motors, and so the way that the aircraft were designated, so F4F, there was a really, I explained this in the book. There was a complicated way that all of the aircraft were named and lettered, and one of the letters stood for whoever actually built the aircraft.
Yeah, so when you're saying TBM Avenger, you're going from a more general aspect. It's like they might not have actually been TBMs.
They might have been TDFs, I think.
Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there, before someone can gotcha me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I thought there was God, I really thought it was the Dauntless. One of them was just so slow because you said slow but deadly.
Yeah, the Dauntless was very slow.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought that they were just decimated. I think it was Midway.
No, that was the Devastators that got devastated.
Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right, Connor. It was the Devastators.
The torpedo squadron, and that was essentially where all of the Japanese fighters went down and attacked the torpedo squadrons and destroyed them. I mean, wholesale destroyed them. But then unbeknownst to the Japanese, and really unbeknownst to the American bomber pilots too, who just kind of happen over the there are 2 or 3 different bomber squadrons in the SBDs at Midway that just kind of happen onto the Japanese fleet, right? And they happen to happen over them at the same time.
Let's see here.
Very proud to say that Buffalo has produced Harold Ellison, who is part of Squadron 8, who perished, and also Wade McCluskey.
Oh, McCluskey. Okay. Let's see. I thought this was a cool picture.
That's a great picture.
Now, is this
Avenger, right? Is
this Hornet 8?
No, this is Hornet. This is CV-12 Hornet.
Oh, it's 12. Okay.
Yes. Again,
Helldiver.
Someone's probably going to correct me on this, but if you'll go back one and let me talk about the Hornet for a minute.
Let's talk about anything you
there
want.
It is. It's got the Dazzle paint scheme on it. I forget how many dozen or 2 dozen of the Essex class aircraft carriers we build and use in the Pacific in World War II. But this is the biggest and the latest and greatest technological marvel that the U.S. is gonna put in the fleets in the Pacific theater. And you have to imagine that if you go from your first tours at Guadalcanal, and then you end up on the Hornet, with its air-conditioned ready rooms, with its bunks, and particularly for the officers who are more or less 2 to a room. There's a ward room. There's a ready room. To the men of CVG-11, they just thought it was this absolutely unheard luxury.
Oh yeah,
that they got to spend time on.
Well, they're on a cruise ship now. You know? Yeah, like you said, there's air conditioning, running water, no mud, ice cream. You know?
And so they're now on the Hornet from September to February. So September of 44 through February of 45 is when they are in the Pacific. So Leyte Gulf is kind of right in the middle of that in late October. Now let me also say that generally speaking, one aircraft carrier looks like any other aircraft carrier. It was not common, but it was not uncommon to sometime make a mistake. And I'm reminded of the story of Ensign Paul Warren of VF-11, who he's leading his section in. So he's leading in a 4-ship of F6F. They break through the cloud. They get in the pattern. They come down onto the deck of the carrier. Warren jumps out, grabs his stuff, runs over to the catwalk, hops down and goes down to the door to go in the ready room, and the door is gone. And Warren kind of looks around and says, well, damn, the maintenance guys must have really been working here to move the door that I know was right here down another 20 feet. Well, surely, he literally reaches out and touches the wall to go, this is going to be fresh paint. And they've moved the door. And he begins to have this dawning realization as he looks up from the catwalk to the superstructure and realize he has landed on the wrong carrier.
So which one did he land on?
Yeah, he landed on the Essex.
No.
Yeah, and the fighter pilots on the Essex wanted to make him president for life of the I landed on the wrong carrier club.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of.
Yeah, I can imagine they wouldn't let him leave for a while, right?
Then you gotta barter them and trade, trade ice cream or something for them. That was kind of standard practice when that occurred.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of crazy stories, from this time period, but I have not heard that one.
Yeah, that one. I just love the idea that he hoped beyond hope that they had really cut through the side of the ship to move the door.
Mm-hmm.
Because the alternative is I've made a mistake, right? And surely I wouldn't make a mistake.
No. And of course, at that time, you're talking about pilots that are in their early 20s, plenty of arrogance running around. Yeah, nah, he didn't make a mistake. The one of the things that fascinates me when somebody like you decides to write a book like this, like I said, the battles themselves, the character, that's all interesting. But the process, going back to the process, when you talk about a story like that, he lands on the wrong carrier. Is that something you came across through your research, or was that something that was already commonly known?
Well, I forget where that, you'd have to go to the footnote for that one, but that was in either the, one of the after action reports, or it was in a diary somewhere. It was an original source document. I don't remember particularly which one it was. But that was, like I said, writing this book was fun.
Yeah, that would be incredibly fun to come across something like that.
You come across stories like that that were, either written in someone's diary or written in a letter home or, in newspaper articles. And so you would, in the midst of this day-to-day grind of going on attack after attack after attack, you would come across these, really funny stories.
And it was probably even almost like a pleasure for whether it was the yeoman or whichever clerk was typing up the story.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's finally not a battle. This is hilarious.
Yeah.
And, this is their little epic that they get to write up.
Yeah. And, some of these stories are, landing on the wrong aircraft carriers is obviously funny. Some of these are funny because they're not tragic. So there was once a torpedo plane, TBM Avenger, came back. It still had its torpedo on board, and it had a very hard landing. And when it landed, the torpedo ripped through the bottom of the aircraft and went bouncing down the deck of the Hornet, and then stopped towards the end. And some armament machinist mate went out there and de-armed it, and they took it back, and kind of no harm, no foul. And of course, the story is told as, man, it was really funny when pilot so-and-so landed and this torpedo went skipping across the deck. And it's funny because it doesn't explode, right? I mean, this torpedo has got, 100 pounds of Torpex or something in the nose cone of it. It could have been disastrous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to go back to this great photo here. So what are we looking at here?
So you're looking at two SB-2C bombers circling over the Hornet there, and it's really hard to pick out But if you notice on the tail of the aircraft there, really lightly, you can see a circle, right?
Oh yeah, I can see it.
And then there's
Wait, what'd you do?
Hold on a second.
no, that's actually so there's the circle
Oh yeah.
and the number above it. The number above it is literally the tail number of the aircraft, and then the circle denotes that this is Air Group 11. That was their marking.
Okay.
If you go forward one photograph, and I don't know, I mean, I think these are F4U Corsairs sitting there. Again, someone can correct me if they're
Hellcats.
They're Hellcats. Okay.
Yeah, those
all right.
do look like.
Yeah, they okay. But you can see the aircraft number, but you can also see kind of the chevron there. And so whatever particular fighter squadron that is, that denotes whatever air group they come from. So go back to the Hornet.
All right.
And that was just a picture that I really liked. And we were able to find a high enough resolution shot to put into the book. And so it I wanted to make sure that not every photograph in the book was one of the fighter aircraft.
Sure.
Can
Well,
you go
yeah,
back to the other photograph, Ken?
I sure can.
Uh-oh, I think I know why John is saying this.
Well, there's a destroyer escort.
Yep.
No way.
Yeah.
You're right.
Look how teeny it looks.
Yeah.
That looks like an Everts class to me, but
So this is
I was going to
at,
say that, John.
this is at the anchorage at Aleuthe,
yeah, that makes sense.
which was this for those that don't know, it was this atoll that we had that was essentially the largest Navy base in the world. And it may be to this day the largest Navy base in the world, but it was a few hundred miles kind of east of the action in the Pacific, if you will. And so this is what they called Murderer's Row. I think the Hornet is second or third there in the photograph, but this just shows you, here are 5 of the dozen or so Essex aircraft carriers all in this particular harbor. In this particular harbor, I mean, they built it up. I mean, they had restaurants and bars and shore leave and facilities and all sorts of really wonderful things there at Aleuthe. And there could be, 10 or 20,000 American sailors there at any one time, particularly in late 44 and 45. But yeah, I mean, you look at the escort destroyer there and it's just kind of dwarfed by that Essex class aircraft carrier in the background.
Yep.
Good catch, John.
We have photographs. Obviously, Slater was with the Intrepid in New York City in the 90s, and they would move her around for mooring things. But in some photographs, she's literally sitting under the hangar deck.
Yeah.
It's amazing the scale of these ships.
Well, here, wait, hold on a second.
And to think the carriers are even bigger today than World War II.
There's the Slater right there.
Yeah, little baby ship.
yeah.
It's the lifeboat for an Essex class carrier.
Yeah.
And this is as good a time as any to mention that, I forget, it might be 20 Essex class aircraft carriers that we build in the Second World War.
I think
24. And there are only 4 that survived today. And was it Connor that just mentioned the Intrepid?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's the Intrepid in New York. The Yorktown is in Charleston, South Carolina. The Hornet is in California, and then I'm missing
Lexington.
Is it Lexington? Okay.
Corpus Christi.
Okay, yeah. So of the 24 Essex class aircraft carriers, there are 4 surviving, and if you have a chance to go visit one, it's a very powerful experience.
It's an interesting thought. What's the largest ratio in terms of ships made that are still preserved? Is it Liberty ships?
I have
over 1,000 Liberty ships. There's only a couple left as museums.
Yeah, I have no idea.
That's an interesting point.
100% is the Iowa battleships, right?
Yeah, the Iowa is 100%.
Oh, that's
Well,
true.
here's a question from
yeah.
Santi 1821.
What do we got?
I'd be interested to ask how the museum fleet supports or can support scholars in their work. Thank you for the conversation.
I would say that the best way that museums or organizations can support is to reach out to graduate schools where you're going to have military historians studying. I'm not what you would call a junior scholar anymore, but there are plenty of young master's and PhD students who need things like travel grants, the ability to go to these archives or these sites to do their research. So reach out to, I'm going to list a few colleges off the top of my head where I know they've got some great military history programs. University of North Texas, Texas A&M, Kansas State, Ohio State, University of North Carolina. There are some great up and coming scholars there who could use travel money and research money. To me, that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck there.
Mm-hmm. And do you come when you talk about younger scholars that maybe grab your attention? What's their approach to history like this? I mean, Dr. Brian Laslie, he writes books. Shane writes books. Are they taking a different path?
I think, like I said earlier, we all start with this notion that we are going to be, tenure track professors at a major research one college, and that's what we're going to do. There are many tracks that young historians can take, and this used to be called, in academia, it used to be called Plan B, which I always hated because that denotes that what you end up doing is not Plan A, which would be a professor somewhere. But federal service, every government organization has some type of history program. Museum work is a phenomenal field to get into. Archives, presidential libraries. There are any number of places that having a degree, an advanced degree in history, can take you. And so when I say, I always like, finding a young PhD student fresh out of grad school or with a dissertation that's going to be a great book. And this is simply because one day I want to hang all this up and walk away from it. And it's always nice to know that there's a generation right after me ready to come up and continue the good work.
Mm-hmm. Getting back to our conversation earlier, and this is just, I don't know if it needs comment, maybe it does, but it's interesting to think, Brian, that, 2 more generations, people will be writing about World War II without having met any World War II veterans. It's just something really interesting to think about.
There's I think this is something that only adults can appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
That when I was a kid, World War II was 40 years ago.
Right.
Vietnam was 20 or 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Now World War II is 80 years ago. It will not be long in our lifetimes. It'll be 100 years ago. And it just as time progresses and as these things we study and we learn from, hopefully, it's only once you're an adult that you realize that 20 years ago was a second ago, and that was. I got CDs in my car older than that.
Oh, I know. I mean, pretty soon, when you put it into terms like that, pretty soon 9/11 is going to be their version of what, World War II or Vietnam was to us. But when we were kids, it was a civil war. There weren't any Civil War veterans alive. And now pretty soon that's what World War II is going to be to these up and coming generations.
And I think it's always important. Don't fault, let's not get into a generational argument, but don't fault young kids for not having the same reverence or respect. I mean, teach them, tell them the importance of it. But none of my college students were alive during 9/11. This is something that they have only observed watching it on YouTube and in documentaries and things like that. They do not have the visceral reaction that we all have to it.
That's a good point. Okay. So So you're actually teaching.
Yeah,
Wow.
I teach part-time, which is something Indiana Jones said in one of the movies. You know, you're a professor, and he says part-time. And so I enjoy saying part-time. Kind of fill in where needed, but should we talk more about aircraft carriers and Air Group 11, or?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you know what? I find this whole thing fascinating, and
I don't want to waste y'all's time, but you can get me on
no
a topic,
idea,
and I'll just take off.
What else do we have in his PowerPoint, Ken?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
Check
So
this.
This is after this is 1945. This would have been painted somewhere on the USS Hornet. Sometimes it would have been up on the superstructure. Sometimes you could find it down in the decks, in the hangar decks. But this gives a good idea of what all three, not just CVG-11, but what all three air group squadrons did during the Second World War that flew from CV-12 Hornet. So if you notice, it starts in March of 44 up on the left-hand side. And then you would have to go all the way down to where it says Visayans, and I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Luzon on the left-hand side. That is where CVG-11 takes over. And so this is kind of a good point to note what CVG-11 does during its tour. And so you can see that there are attacks on Luzon. You can see that there are attacks on Tokyo, on Leyte, on Manila Bay, on Formosa, on Cameron Bay, on Hong Kong. And so the Hornet, during this time period, late 44, early 45, is more or less just raging throughout the Pacific, along with the other air groups in the on the other Essex aircraft carriers. And so they would have been in part of, depending on what side of a particular line they were on, they were either 3rd or 5th Fleet. And then they would have been part of larger multi-carrier battle groups. But this gives you a good idea of just how many places Air Group 11 attacked, and then get a map of the Pacific out and notice, how far away some of these places were from each other. I mean, they're just ravaging all over the Pacific in late 44, early 45.
I like in the lower right-hand corner, plane shot down 668.
The Americans, the Western way of war, if you want to look at it this way, most of the time, if you were a good stick, a good fighter pilot, a good bomber pilot, there's a good chance you're going to come back and you're going to teach at a schoolhouse. Jimmy Thatch is a perfect example of that, right? Like you go and you do your time, and then you come back and you teach the next generation. And then in every squadron, there's going to be guys who have, the old hands, the old hats who've been around a while. By this point in the war, late 44, early 45, the Japanese Army and the Japanese Navy do not have a plethora of battle-hardened cadre to teach the young generation. You are lucky if you are a Japanese pilot, if you even have rudimentary skills in your particular airframe. It has almost become an unfair fight in late 44, early 45. Not to say an easy fight. That is not what I am trying to imply at all. But the Americans at this point are better trained, better equipped, just about better at everything, I think.
Yeah, the skill disparity was huge at that particular point. Let's see here.
That's why Japan tried to have a knockout blow right in the beginning, right? Because look at those.
Yeah. So
up earlier.
I almost told you before we started to hide this.
Oh,
And now I'll tell you, I get no money from these guys. I just happen to like their shoes. If you are into airplanes, if you're into World War II history, or if you're into aviation history at all, I Love a Hanger is the company, and they make all of these just absolutely phenomenal shoes. If you go back to the picture of 114 flying over the Hornet,
I see it. The circle.
Yeah. And then the other so I had these custom made when the book came out. I'm grateful to the company. So yeah, you can see that aircraft is 114.
okay, gotcha.
So that's the and then the number 9 from the Sundowners there with the Japanese rising suns on the front. I had those made in honor of Charlie Stimson, who was a veteran of both the Guadalcanal and the USS Hornet tour. He was the squadron's leading ace with 16 aerial victories. He had this really cadaverous look. And so, this is the early, everyone gets a nickname, right? I mentioned earlier that George Ratalis was called Ratalass. They initially called Stimson Skull. And there's several pictures of him in the book, and he does kind of look like Skeletor. That's deep cut track there. Just the way, but he was
not for all of us.
He was the squadron's leading ace. He's one of the few pilots who was both an ace in the F4F and the F6F. So he had more than 5 kills in each of those aircraft. But after he became an ace, they changed his call sign. They previously had been Skull, and they started calling him Trigger Mortis.
I love that.
That's a good one. So going back to this picture though, so what was it called? It was called, I'm sorry, was it called In the Hangar?
I Love a Hanger.
I Love a Hanger. Okay.
Yeah. Again, I get no kickbacks. I get, they've gotten way more money from me than they will from any of y'all.
I've never heard of them, but you know what? I'm glad you brought them up because
to be 100% honest, I got a pair kind of as a joke. I started wearing them to work. And then I, didn't wear them to work, and people were like, "Hey, wear your airplane shoes." So I don't want to brag. My wife would not consider this a brag. I now have 10 pairs of these things. Each one is a different aircraft. Hey, they're a great conversation starter. But this was when this book came out. This was what I got myself to celebrate it.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. That's
nice.
I'm taking a look at the pair on the right. I think that's so you submit.
Yeah, I actually emailed them and called them and said, "Hey, I've already bought 8 pairs of your shoes. Would you make these for me?" Okay. And they did. I think they're based out of Australia. They're a phenomenal company. I am not on their payroll in any way, shape, or form. I just really like the fact that I get to wear essentially Converse to work every day.
That is great. And
now,
then go ahead, Connor. No.
Now, just kind of getting on track for a second. What ultimately? So the squadron obviously does its time on Hornet.
Yep.
And my question is, so where were they when the war ends?
So they were the squadron was back at North Island. They had left in February of 1945. They were back on one of these refitting, building back up, getting ready to go back out for a third cruise. Because, of course, in February 45, March 45, all the way through summer 45, there really isn't an end in sight for the war in the Pacific.
Yeah.
Keep in mind that the number of people who know about the atomic bomb is very few. Mm-hmm. There is a very real belief that the war is going to go on into late 45 into 1946 if not longer. So when the war ends, Air Group 11 is back at North Island getting ready for a possible third cruise. Now, let me say that not all of them were back at North Island. In addition to the many MIA and KIA that the unit suffered in their second cruise, Blake Moranville, who is a junior ensign for VF-11, he was also caretaker of the squadron's mascot, which was Gunner, which was a little English bulldog. Moranville had been shot down at Cameron Bay, today Vietnam, back then French Indochina. And his is another story where he gets shot down, and it takes him months to make it back to the United States. He's imprisoned by the French government there. The Japanese know that there are Americans that are in this prison. They basically are secreted out. They walk out with members of the French Foreign Legion, and it's just this amazing story of young Ensign Moranville slowly but surely making his way back to the United States, where he is reunited with Gunner after the war's over.
Okay.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because a lot of those paths, that's not the right word. They all kind of start with the Doolittle raid, it takes them weeks and months to get back. You enlist the help of the natives, so you kind of start to hear those stories from the Doolittle Raiders, and then you talk about, hell, it could even be pilots and air crews from the 8th Air Force over in Europe. It just takes them weeks and months to make it back. And what do? Instead of going home, they just, if they have the opportunity, they get back to their squadron and they fly again.
Yeah, George K is a great example, right? Shut down, watches the Battle of Midway, and next tour he's back with VT-11 just a few months later.
Yeah. It's I'm sorry, what, Shane?
I think he was on the cover of Life magazine there, so maybe that's in between. But yeah, let's promote the book again here.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've been having Dr. Brian Laslie on with us tonight. His book just came out within the last month or two, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. And of course, whenever we have these authors on from the U.S. Naval Institute Press, you can get the book there. It's available on Amazon. You also have your own website. All of those links will appear or do appear in the description of this broadcast below. So whether you're watching us tonight on History X, whether you're watching from the Buffalo Naval Park or the USS Slater's YouTube channel, if you're interested in Brian's book, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch, you will find the link to any of those purchase opportunities in the description of the video below. Brian, I got to tell you, man, it's been great having you on tonight. You're a lot of fun.
This has been a blast.
I'm shocked you picked us to be your first. You know what? Consider this practice, because you're going to be doing a lot more interviews about this book. The stories are fantastic. I want to bring that picture up one more time. The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch, published by the U.S. Naval Institute Press. Check it out. And as I always like to ask, Connor does too, what do you got in the works? What's next?
Yeah. So, I mentioned when I, over a decade ago, I finished a dissertation. I never want to touch it again. Maybe I'll turn it into a book. And then I had an opportunity to write a second book. And then eventually, I kind of come to the conclusion that, I enjoy this. I enjoy the research and I enjoy the writing. I'll tell you that now that we're getting close enough to it being a reality, I've always got kind of, something in the pipeline to be published, and then something I'm working on right now. And so the next book is going to be, again, by Naval Institute Press.
Okay.
But it's kind of like Monty Python now for something completely different. In that I am working on a biography of, let's make a very long story short, 1920s West Point grad, helped establish the Red Ball Express in Europe in World War II.
Oh, the Red Ball. Okay.
Goes on to be governor of the Panama Canal, goes on to be executive vice president of the 1964 World's Fair, and then ends his career as one of the chief engineers for the building of Walt Disney World. And so it's this amazing story, almost like Forrest Gump, because along the way, he interacts with Patton and Bradley and Montgomery and Robert Moses in New York and Walt Disney. And so it's kind of this Forrest Gump story of this amazing individual who had this really amazing life. And again, that no one had ever heard of or researched. Although if you go to Walt Disney World today, he has one of the windows on Main Street, and there's one of the big steamboats is named after him too. So, and so hopefully that'll be out next year or early 27.
So that would be your second biography, right?
Yeah. And what's funny is, so my first biography was about one of these kind of lesser known heroes of the Air Force, General Lawrence Cuter, whose fingerprints were just all over Air Force history. And then the individual I'm writing about now is William Everett Joe Potter. And through like no intention of my own, they both graduated from West Point in the same year.
Do you prefer writing a biography over just more of a general?
I just at this point enjoy writing, and both telling a story, but also adding something to, in everything that I write, I want to add something to what we call the historiography, right? Like I want to add something, fill in a hole somewhere, talk about something that has legitimately never been talked about before.
Well, and you obviously have a passion for space travel because you got that Saturn V over your left shoulder.
I don't know if you probably can't see it, but I've got the Saturn V.
Yeah. Is that the station ISS there?
I got the ISS. I got the lunar lander, and then my next to the Saturn V, I've the shuttle's also here.
Is that the one that's going to be moved to?
No.
But by the way, these are not models. These are all Legos.
Very nice.
I have zero artistic ability whatsoever. I can't build models. So I build Legos because I can just follow the instructions.
Yeah.
I wonder if Lego History Sam is still on. He'd love that.
That's a good point.
He was on earlier.
He was on earlier. He's the one that had the comment about. I wanted to bring that up actually. Where was his comment?
It was way it was near the top.
The Seabees found it.
The Seabees, that's what it was. Yeah. In your book, and I apologize because I have not had a chance to read it, but after talking to you tonight, I'm going to grab it. The the Seabees, that's a group. You talk about an unsung group, but they really didn't have a connection with 11, that you wrote about in your book, so that wouldn't have come into play. But I wanted to
think it's the infrastructure around Guadalcanal
or lack of it. Yeah.
And then later at the anchorage at Aleuthe too.
Oh, good point. Yeah. No, they had a lot going on there. Well, like I said a few minutes ago, Dr. Brian Laslie, author of, damn it, there it is, the Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. Man, it's been great having you on tonight. We definitely appreciate you being so generous with your time. We always have the intention of having these authors from the U.S. Naval Institute Press on for like maybe a half hour. Maybe they'll be generous enough to give us a half hour. Brian, on the other hand, an hour and a half, and it's all been fascinating. So definitely check out his book, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
It's been great having you on, and you're fantastic. And even viewers aren't aware, but before we logged on, the technical difficulties that we had were like outrageous. But not with Brian. His was spot on. His camera was good. His audio was good. It was like, I had problems with my camera. Shane had problems with his microphone. Connor had problems with, it was just a nightmare. And Brian rolled with it. So we appreciate you putting up with us tonight.
No, my pleasure.
And I don't know what form it would take, but it would. I'd love to have you on for another broadcast somehow. I mean, we could use this guy, right, Shane?
Hey, I've got
He's got other books.
yeah, go find another one.
Well, we'll work with Sam. So we've done. I got in contact with Sam from USNI, and we decided to try and do a year of the authors. Right, so every month we're highlighting an author, but we've talked about extending it from 2025 into 26 a little bit.
Yeah,
we want to get some feedback from our subscribers and viewers and fans.
Obviously, look. Obviously, I wrote the book with Naval Institute Press, and I've got another one coming out with them, hopefully in the not too distant future. But those are absolutely wonderful individuals. I mean, everyone from the press director, Adam Kane, down to their acquisitions folks, their editing team, just a top-notch group of people who have produced some of the finest, not just Navy history books, but some of the finest aviation history, Navy history, Marine history. If you can't find something interesting to read there at Naval Institute Press, that's probably more on you than anything else. I absolutely love that group of individuals there.
They've been great to work with this year. That's for sure. And we've been thrilled to have a lot of these, authors on in the past. Like I said a few moments ago, you've been fantastic. You were also really generous with your answer. Santee 1821 had asked this question earlier, talking about, supporting up and coming scholars. And that, of course, branched off into me hitting you with some other questions. But for somebody unlike yourself, obviously you've got the experience, you've got the pedigree with the education and the books you've written in the past. But for somebody that might be at that graduate level, scholar level, or maybe just an amateur historian, and they, everyone's got a book in them, right? They want to, but someone that actually decides to, but can't, they're never going to get the attention of the Institute Press. What are your thoughts on self-publishing these days?
The best thing that my major professor, the great Dr. Don Mrozek, told me was, I don't care about a dog's pedigree. I care whether it can hunt. And there are any number of avenues that you can go to academic presses. There are small presses that specialize in military history. There is the self-published route. There is no wrong way anymore to write a book. Look, we all have dreams. I mean, even myself of one day one of the big five in New York's gonna pick me up. But to anyone who's got a story to tell, anyone who's a young academic, just keep grinding it out. Another piece of great advice that I got from a really good friend of mine was that in anything you do, it is more about stick-to-itiveness than it is about any, natural gift of intelligence or anything like that. Mm-hmm. I happen to I happen to treat being a historian like a craft. Mm-hmm. And so I approach it the same way, the same way that a musician approaches their craft or an actor. And so I'm always reading biographies, actors, musicians, other authors, what have you. And if anything I've learned from all of that is just keep grinding it out, work at it every day. Got it.
Well, I wanted to hit you with that question because I thought Santee 1821's question earlier was pretty that's a question we don't really get to ask authors all that much. It's like, how do you support the up and comers? Well, again, Dr. Brian Laslie, one last time, I want to bring this picture up. Author of the Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch, available from the U.S. Naval Institute Press, also available on Amazon, as well as Dr. Brian Laslie's website, which I don't actually think I mentioned. Can you give us a plug of your website real quick?
Yeah, sure. So you can find me any number of places. My website is just www.brianlaslie.com. I am active on Instagram. I'm active on Threads, and I'm active on Blue Sky, which is where, really, if you want pictures of airplanes, or what I'm doing up at the Air Force Academy, those are all good places to find me.
Okay.
All right, man. Well, thanks for your generosity with your time this evening. It's been great having you on. We are now going to kick you off and talk behind your back. But hopefully you'd be willing to come back on with us in the future.
Anytime, give me a call. You know where to find me.
All right, man. You have a great evening. Thank you again.
Brian.
All right. Thanks, y'all. Cheers.
Have a good night.
Well, that guy was fascinating.
Yeah, this is a great talk. And again, we have different subjects on here. It's not just Navy. It's not just Navy history or, something about a battle, as Dr. Brian was mentioning. This gives really nice insight. And we've had other squadron authors on before, so someone can build a really nice naval aviator collection from the authors that we've had on.
Yeah, it was impressive stuff. Again, Brian Laslie, author of the Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. This year, it's been a lot of fun having these authors on from the U.S. Naval Institute Press. So if you get a chance, if you're interested in getting a book to read, support those guys, because they've been lining up the authors for us. And
I almost exclusively just buy from USNI now. Now I'm a member, right? So you get a discount, a book discount. But I think the last 7 books I purchased are exclusively been because I've developed that trust in the authors that they're going to publish something that's really academic, well researched, well footnoted, and could be a great entranceway into your own research. And this sparks this, and that's what he was talking about. And
and it was also interesting. You make an interesting point, just talking about going after publishers versus I don't know anything else. It's an interesting method of approach, because they contacted him with the subject, right? And so it's like, all right, well, if you wanted to kind of set your sights on just one publisher, it sounds like, if like a lot of the other books that they've been publishing, they're constantly working at, all right, what will our audience find interesting next? Let's find an author that will fit that mold. And I didn't really know it worked that way. All right.
Does anyone else have any thoughts?
Apparently, I'm the only one that thinks about that. No.
I mean, I just didn't want to jump in. I believe once you have cred, and Dr. Brian had cred, he had published a bunch of books beforehand.
Yeah.
And you just become known in the community, right? Like Ken, you're known in the YouTube world, right?
I sure am.
Yes. And so I think once that credibility happens, you get to know, he seems to know the staff there on the publishing side. And I mean, I can see that a publisher going to a specific person for a specific topic.
Yeah.
Very cool stuff. All right, let's shift gears like we always do. And we are going to now talk about what's going on at the Buffalo Naval Park.
Oh, hello.
So
Great.
You had said the last broadcast that this is an old, outdated photo. You should give me an updated one.
Okay, sounds good. I'll get right on that. Yeah, this is from 2003 when we moved the ships from farther down. You can see upriver where that like black barge is or whatever it is, that little black square. That's now the canal side area. They moved us into our current nesting spot in 2003, so that photograph is around that time.
Sweet. Right. So Shane Stevenson, curator at the Buffalo and Erie County Naval Military Park. What's the summer been like for you guys?
Oh my God, it's been nuts. It's been nuts with a lot of projects and a lot of events going on, a lot of future planning. Over this has been the hiring of a new CEO and who's it going to be. And so today was our first day. Today was the first day that we had this afternoon. The new CEO came in, introduced himself to the staff. We sat around, all of us, for about 2 hours, just listened to him talk about his vision. He wanted to learn about each of us in a little bit of way. So that's finally done. So that was kind of hanging over our head because Paul, after 7 years, is transitioning out. So we're meeting with him a lot. These are things that I would like to see you complete and finish. And so it just is, yeah, there's just like critical mass going on, like at the Naval Park in terms of volunteers, the reenactors that we had, the Sea Cadets that have their 10-day training on board. It's been pretty busy.
When you mentioned the volunteers and you talk about the cadet programs and all that stuff. So when a museum as big as the Buffalo Naval Park has new leadership in the form of a new CEO, are you guys excited? Are you nervous? Have you received any indication as to whether or not your pet projects are going to go by the wayside or they're going to get focus?
No, not yet. That's a great question. No, I think in general we're excited. This gentleman is from Dallas, Texas, right? So he has no connection to the museum ship world. He has a strong connection to nonprofits. He actually worked at the Queen Mary for a little bit. That was his one little nugget that he mentioned about museum ships. And he's worked at various historical sites in the nonprofit world, but not really, besides the Queen Mary, not really the maritime world. So he brings a lot of passion. He brings a lot of cred. And we haven't had those discussions yet of, a gather and pause moment where you kind of gather, you talk about things, you pause it for a little bit, and then you review it. I think he probably will meet with us individually as we go on. He'll probably say, what are you working on, Shane? And he might say, you know what, that's right in the nuggets with your job description, or you know what, that's a little off of your job description. Are you okay doing this? So he'll bring a lot of us in this world, we just kind of take on other things, and then it becomes a major aspect of your job.
How old a guy are we talking about?
Oh, I don't want to do that on film, man.
Why not? Is he too young?
No. But if you're asking me to guess his age, 44.
Oh, in his 40s. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's in his 40s.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry, Brian, if you're watching. And it's 44 is not your age. Excuse me. Ken put me on the spot.
What?
So.
Oh, is that his name? Is his name Brian?
Yes.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Here's a question here. I'm assuming he meant to say any instead of and. You any further on your dry docking?
Emnock, hello. So not probably since the last update. Last week we did finally have the project management firm TNT Salvage, also out of Texas, come to Buffalo, and they started to analyze the ships and what they will need to do, the Buffalo River to dredge, move the ships. So they're beginning that mooring plan and the dead tug plan. They're beginning to take a look at the tanks and get, rough estimate of the soundings and where they need to sound to secure the ships for those 23 hours when they'll be in the Lake Erie. And so that started last week. I don't know when they'll be back, but they did take a tour around. They started to analyze what they're seeing and what the first initial steps need to have happen. So, right. Very proud to say that, and I think Ken will be joining me, is the Cobia. We had them on in February of 2024. They are going to dry dock in September. And I've been invited up there to take a look at the Cobia and to do what I did with the kid back in March. And I talked to Ken, and I believe Ken is going to get some brats with me in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I'm gonna join you there and be your camera.
We're excited about that and do some filming for our channels and things. So again, trying to address that uncertainty that we might have, because Cobia's 245, Croker's 246. Identical except for really the superstructure and some changes on the interior. I'm sorry, on the deck, changes on the deck and the conning tower, but not the superstructure or the pressure hull. very much. So again, I kind of do an analysis like I did with the kid. So we have our annual fundraiser tomorrow, Ship and Shore. So it's going to be a long night tomorrow. It's always a good time. Then we are hosting the National Maritime Historical Society Conference along with the HINSA Conference in September. There's just like big chunks of projects coming at us and landing on our desk quite a bit. So, but it's a good year. We've seen a dip in attendance, no doubt about it. I'm kind of a wonk that way. I like to look at last year's numbers compared to this year's numbers, and month by month we've been down a little bit. But that, I guess, maybe is to be expected with the uncertainty in the uncertainty in the economy and certainly Canadian visitors. It's
yeah.
But I'm monitoring it, and we're monitoring it, and then we'll see how to bring back critical mass as the coming years come on.
Yeah. All right. Shane Stevenson, curator, Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park. If you want to check out their stuff on YouTube, all you got to do is go to the search bar and type in Buffalo Naval Park. It comes right up, and you're going to see a lot of the content they post there. Shane appears on it regularly, so check out their YouTube channel. And of course, the website, buffalonavalpark.org, buffalonavalpark.org. Thank you, Connor, for pulling that up there.
Thank you.
Let's see. And all right, moving on, John Epp. And for those of you that haven't thought that John Epp was joining us, his camera, or he just isn't using a camera. So, curator, USS Slater, Albany, New York. John, what's the latest and greatest?
Yeah, apologies. I don't have a camera, and I'm not going to spend the money to buy one. So.
You're not sorry.
No. Hot summer. Shane, question for you: do you have any air conditioning on any of the ships?
Yeah, the Little Rock is. For the Sullivans, all your touring is outside the main deck, and then the O1 level and the O2 level. So you're outside pretty much. You can see the aft head, but pretty much it's outside. For the Little Rock, there are modern air conditioning units, maybe 5 or so. Like the big ones that you'd have like in the backyard of your house. Yeah. So we do have spaces that are air conditioned, and a lot that are not.
What about the Admiral's cabin on the Little Rock that was refurbished, a year ago?
Probably 2.5, maybe.
Oh, has it been that long? Okay.
That is one of those areas that's been piped for air conditioning from those units outside.
Mm-hmm.
Officer's wardroom, mess deck, only one berthing space, but it is for 80 people. That's air conditioned, and then a lot of it is not. So, like in my office, I have a window air conditioner, of whatever you call that box, something. Someone before my time cut out the deck, or cut out the bulkhead leading out to the main deck, and put in an air conditioning unit. So,
oh geez, wow. Could you imagine doing that now?
No, that would not be worth it now. No.
What about the Slater? Is the Slater air conditioning?
Yeah, no air conditioning. So that's what I was saying. Hot summer. I think our attendance is down as well. It does not feel like it's been as busy as last summer at all. We don't get a whole lot of Canadian visitors regardless. We've had some this year, but definitely seen a drop there. Maintenance work continues in various areas of the ship. A lot of welding work going up on our flying bridge, trying to patch leaks and eventually start restoring that area again. We are preparing to hopefully bring our motor whaleboats back on the ship this fall.
Nice.
In years past, so our davits, everything works. Electric capstan, all that good stuff works. But we haven't brought the whaleboat on or off the ship since 2019. So we are hoping to do that again this year. We bought new mooring lines to rig up the davits. New line. We got to do some work on the davits, but we're hoping October and November to get everything up and running and get the whaleboat back on the ship. And then, just normal day-to-day stuff. Nothing special.
Hey, do me a favor. Remind me. Earlier when we were talking to, I want to bring this picture up. When we were talking to Brian Laslie, about his book, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch. This picture that you keyed in on. Where the heck was that?
Oh, the destroyer escort.
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks to be. That's got to be. I'm going to say 43 or 44. Because it's in dazzle camouflage. It's definitely a 3-inch destroyer escort. There's no 5-inch guns on her, so it's either Everett's, Buckley, or Cannon.
But would the Slater, was the Slater strictly Atlantic, or did it
No.
make it?
She was in the Pacific.
Did it make it over to Ulithi?
No.
No.
Leyte, Manila,
Okay.
Tokyo. Yeah.
Gotcha.
He's
Yeah.
hoping it's that. He's hoping it's the Slater.
Yeah,
That's not. Yeah, no, she when she went to the Pacific, they repainted her dazzle to just measure 21.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so she was dazzle like that in the Atlantic. I mean, I probably can't figure out what the exact ship is. I could probably figure out the dazzle camouflage though. But yeah, I've never seen this photograph before. It's great.
Me neither. You talk about Murderer's Row and all that stuff. It's like, look at that. It's a great picture. And then to have, like 4 of the largest warships, and then here's a destroyer escort just
Steaming away.
busting the shot.
I remember that. And that destroyer escort is probably a lot closer to the camera than the carriers are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's most likely a Bucky class. It was generally the steam plant DEs that were with the Essex class carriers. The diesel ones are just going to be too slow.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
most likely that's a Buckley.
Uh-huh.
Very cool. Yeah, I noticed that right away. At first I said, oh, a destroyer. And then I looked right before you clicked the picture back.
Only one stack.
And I said, only one stack. And I said, there it is.
No 5-inch guns, yeah.
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 I just love how the DE's like photo bombing the the aircraft.
It totally is.
I just love how they're all, even the carriers, they're all in dazzle. Dazzle camouflage, man. Love it.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Ewan Park Stevenson.
Yeah, not Tim Nesmith.
Yeah. All right. So hold on a second. Let me get back on track here. Where the hell was
Oh, our I guess our big news. September 6th, we have our volunteer appreciation dinner. So
Awesome.
We'll be doing that.
Great.
You said September 6th?
Yep.
All right. Check out the Slater's website, ussslater.org. Of course, the YouTube channel. Search for USS Slater, and you're going to see all kinds of their content. Where's the Slater YouTube channel at now, subscriber-wise?
Oh, it's been a few days since I looked. One of our volunteers, Jim, has been putting videos out every couple of weeks about mainly armament on DEs because he was a gunner's mate on a destroyer. And our latest one, last I checked, was I think 14,000 views. It was on
that one.
Nice.
1.1 inch, was it? Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. So like I said a few moments ago, Buffalo, jeez.
Hey.
USSslater.org, and search for USS Slater on the search bar of YouTube. Also available on Facebook. You can find them on Facebook as well.
It could be delivering mail, that's for sure.
Yeah, no joke, right? I saw that comment. I'm going, that's probably exactly what that
the photos of DEs going alongside the carriers to do whatever type of transfer of personnel or mail or whatever. It's amazing. I said it earlier, the size comparison, but trying to go up alongside that Essex carrier and just try to do a transfer of just mail, it's nuts.
Yeah.
There was a comment I
Go
saw
ahead.
years ago, and it was basically, I'm trying to remember what it was from. It was like, I think it was from one of the old History Channel shows, but basically it was a veteran back when more veterans were alive to do interviews. And he basically mentions the D's briefly, and he basically says something along the lines of, it's like, for the Admiralty, they're protection for the carriers, but for us, they were hostage takers because they're coming to drop off our mail or a downed pilot, but they demand ice cream first.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what the kid's famous for.
Yeah.
Bunch of stories like that.
Oh, yeah. I am happy to say that I will be going to Greece in October. And so I'm I'm very proud to say that I'll be visiting the HS Velos.
When are you going in
Oh,
October?
Well, I can send you my itinerary, John. I guess.
Is it the end of the
think
month?
I'm going like the 29th through the 8th, I think, or something. The 29th through the 7th or something.
Oh, so you're going right around Ohi Day.
Around what?
Ohi Day, their annual, when the Metaxas, their prime minister, said no to the Germans.
Yeah, right. Thank you for that. Yeah, I didn't know that, but yes,
I think it's the 28th
of October.
Yes, we have every year we have a ceremony at the Slater.
Oh, that's right, because she was in the Greek service. That's right. But yeah, the fourth sister, the fourth Butcher. So I'm very excited about that because we've talked, especially when we were doing the 80th anniversaries in 2023 with the 3 remaining.
Couldn't get in touch with them.
Well, if you look at a Google map in Thessaloniki, there's like literally a ticket booth.
Mm-hmm.
That's like it. Like there is no. It doesn't seem as though there's an infrastructure with it.
So I mean, I'm going to be interested when you come back. Oh wow! Finally, civilization has made it over there and made contact. You know,
I'm going to try.
Yeah, it's almost like Admiral Cook sailing into Bay of Japan, right? It's like, you know, let's see what these guys have to say.
The exotic Mediterranean, yes.
Yeah.
Is this just like a trip to Greece and then you're going to see the Velos as like an office thing, or are you going there specifically to see?
No, it was an added plus.
Okay, so you don't necessarily have a contact there yet.
No.
Okay.
Just from the online dating platforms.
keep me in mind because I would love.
Yes.
I want to write the next history of Slater, but I don't want to do it without the 40 years in the Greek Navy, and we know nothing. But I've never been able to establish a contact with the Greek naval archives there. So keep me in mind while you're over there, and who knows, maybe you'll run into somebody at the Velos.
If you get a chance while you're there, Shane, you're going to have to check out the Averof as well.
Yep.
Last armored cruiser in the world.
They have a Liberty ship as well.
They do.
Oh, geez, guys. Well, I'm going with my sister and my stepdad.
They're going to love all of this.
They're interested in the Velo, but they're not going to be interested in the others. So
Shane, museumships.us, fabulous resource to.
Yeah,
really. Okay,
plan your next vacation to see museum ships.
I'll have to look that up. Thank you. Yeah, because I don't have a Facebook page, or I don't use Facebook. So museumships.us. Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of that research. Look at that sun too. Look at how beautiful that sun is. Wow.
All right, let's move on to Connor, who one of the administrators of the Museum Ships Facebook group. He also has been working behind the scenes to take care of your comments, questions. Connor Kilgore, what's everyone talking about lately on the Museum Ships Facebook group?
Just give me a minute. I am dealing with a spammer. There we go. Dealt with. Just look at our comment section. I deleted it all already.
Oh.
Hello everyone. My name is Connor. You all know that.
Your name is Connor? Okay.
Yes. And I am with the Museum Ships Facebook group as well as museumships.us. Basically, the big things in the news right now are, the fact that everyone's seemingly still in dry dock or about to go to dry dock or talking about dry dock. There is Henza, of course, coming up in the near future. So that's with Shane at the Buffalo Naval Park. And things have been just pretty steady. There was some talk earlier this month, if those who follow museum ships are aware, they started taking the stacks off. I think they've taken both stacks off now of the SS United States, which we have talked about a fair bit on this show over the last 6 to 8 months. So the process is continuing. I do know, John, that some of your guys were down there, and as well as a few others, just to see the ship. And it's it's going to be interesting to see when it's finally sunk as a reef or a diving reef, and see what ends up happening after that. Because I believe that she will become the new largest ship that's been sunk as a reef by tonnage. I could be wrong, but I think I read that somewhere that by tonnage she'll be the new largest vessel to have been sunk. Because I know an Essex was the largest for the longest time.
Well, the Oriskany.
Yeah, Oriskany.
Oriskany Bay.
No,
Just
the,
Oriskany.
Yeah, the carrier, the Oriskany. I thought that was the biggest.
Well, when SS United States sinks, that's when that record will apparently be taken.
Oh, really? No kidding. I didn't know. Okay,
that's what I'm hearing. But I'll need to double check that. But that's what's being talked about right now. But yeah, other than that, though, not too much is going on.
Oh, here we go. She will be the largest by length.
Oh, thank you. By length, also great.
And this is from a reliable source.
Thank you, M. Nook.
Yes, reliable source.
Yeah, but yeah, if you want to see updates in the museum ship world, and if you have a Facebook account to talk with your grandparents, I'd highly recommend logging on to Museum Ships. Remember to answer the admission questions. What's your favorite museum ship? And can you see this post? And you hit yes, and we'll accept you within a day. And you just get access to a ton of amazing photographs, videos, and updates on museum ships, not just in the United States, but around the world. There's been a gentleman recently who's been posting a bunch of photos from his trip to Thailand. And there's been some amazing, they have some amazing ships there, including a Japanese-built ship. Which is still around today. It was built for the Kingdom of Siam at the time, but it's still kicking. It's technically one of the last Japanese-built destroyers, if not the last. So a lot of interesting ships.
I noticed one of the more recent posts within the last couple of hours is actually Buffalo and Erie County Naval and Military Park post on the museum ships. Facebook.
Very frequent posters.
What did they do?
I wonder if I could pull it up. It's actually a link to a News 4 WIVB broadcast.
Oh yes, right.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, cool stuff on there. Obviously, the pending sinking of the SS United States is always going to be big news.
Yeah.
Hey, is it Connor?
Yes.
So is the museumships.us, does that mimic the feed from the Facebook page, or is it just like an isolated website?
No, it's an isolated website where we started, but basically
it's PIM's website.
It's PIM's website,
right.
PIM Weingarten. So basically when there's like an update there, PIM will post it to the Facebook group and then back and forth. It's sort of back and forth. But no, we don't get like the posts from people just posting their pictures from a vacation. We don't get those posts on the website. But we have an interactive map. So if you're planning a museum ship trip anywhere in the world, we have you more or less handled there because we got most of them listed out.
That's pretty cool. All right, Connor Kilgore handling the levers and dials for us here on Museum Ship Mafia, but also one of the administrators for Museum Ships Facebook group, Museum Ship, plural, museumships.us. I was going to say museumship.us, but yeah, museumships.us. Thanks for putting that up there. Check it out. Yeah, if you find all of this that we've been talking about interesting tonight, and you have not, become a follower to the Museum Ships Facebook group, you're really missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if this is what you love, you gotta join the group. Check out the website, museumships.us. So, all right, everybody, and I want to give a shout out one last time. Dr. Brian Laslie was great this evening. Definitely appreciate him joining us. Author, The Sundowners, Pegasus, and Little Butch, published by the Naval Institute Press. Check it out. And obviously you've heard everything that he had to say. If you're tuning in this far, if you're on replay and you're tuning in this far, you've heard the stories he had to share, relating his experience on the research that went into this book. Fascinating stuff. Mm-hmm. So you can get a copy, in the description of these videos below, whether you're watching on the Slater, Buffalo Naval Park, History X, you'll see the links that you can click on to grab a copy of this book. Highly recommend it. It was great having him on.
Yeah.
So my name is Ken Stano from the YouTube channel History X. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight and hope everybody has a good evening. Bye, everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.